Have you ever walked into a room that looked absolutely stunning in photos, but somehow felt cold, uncomfortable, or strangely forgettable in person? Then you've probably experienced something most people never think about. Your brain doesn't judge a home the same way your eyes do. Long before you consciously decide whether you like a space, your nervous system has already made that decision. And if you're decorating only for appearance, you could be fighting against millions of years of human psychology without even realizing it. Today, we're uncovering the hidden neuroscience behind spaces that instantly feel warm, peaceful, inspiring, and unforgettable. These aren't expensive design tricks or complicated renovations. They're subtle principles that influence how your brain experiences every room you enter, often without you noticing them at all. Once you notice them, you'll never look at your home the same way again. The first secret is something surprisingly simple. Your brain loves discovery. Most modern homes reveal everything the moment you open the front door. You immediately see the living room, the kitchen, and sometimes even the dining area all at once. It feels practical, but psychologically, it removes something powerful: curiosity. Human brains are wired to explore. Throughout history, survival depended on discovering what lay beyond the next hill or around the next corner. That instinct never disappeared. It is still with us every time we step into a new space and unconsciously wonder what comes next. That's why some of the world's most memorable buildings reveal themselves gradually. A hallway gently bends instead of ending abruptly. A doorway frames only part of the next room. A plant, bookshelf, or decorative screen interrupts the direct line of sight. Instead of showing everything instantly, these spaces invite movement. Every few steps reveal something new. And that sense of gradual discovery keeps the space feeling alive. Even in a small apartment, creating just a little mystery can completely change how the space feels. A reading nook partially hidden behind shelving, soft lighting glowing from another room, a piece of artwork that only comes into view as you walk closer. Your home suddenly becomes an experience instead of a photograph. It begins to feel like a place with layers, not just a collection of furniture. Now here's something even more fascinating. The space above your head quietly changes the way you think. Researchers have found that ceiling height doesn't simply affect how spacious a room feels, it can actually influence your mindset. Higher ceilings often encourage broader, more imaginative thinking. They create a feeling of openness that naturally supports creativity and reflection. People often describe these spaces as airy, expansive, or mentally freeing. Lower ceilings do almost the opposite. They create intimacy. They help people concentrate. They make conversations feel personal and comfortable. That's why massive cathedrals, museums, and grand libraries often leave people standing silently in awe. The height itself encourages your mind to think beyond everyday concerns and look upward in both a literal and psychological sense. But don't mistake low ceilings for a flaw. Some of the most welcoming cafes, wine cellars, and cozy restaurants intentionally create enclosed spaces because they make us feel protected and settled. These rooms can feel inviting precisely because they encourage closeness rather than expansion. Great design isn't choosing one over the other, it's using each intentionally, depending on the feeling you want the room to create. And speaking of intention, here's where most modern interiors quietly miss the mark. Look around almost any newly built home and you'll notice one thing everywhere: straight lines, sharp corners, perfect rectangles. They're practical, but your brain naturally responds more positively to curves. For thousands of years, our brains evolved surrounded by organic forms. You don't need to redesign your house from top to bottom to feel the effect. Sometimes introducing just one or two curved elements softens an entire room. A round mirror, a gently shaped lamp, or an arched shelf can change the atmosphere far more than people expect. And that's only the beginning. Because there's another invisible rule almost every beautiful space follows: balance. Your brain constantly searches for the perfect level of stimulation. Too little visual interest, and a room feels empty and lifeless. The sweet spot lies somewhere in between. Imagine a room with soft neutral walls and one deep emerald chair. Or a quiet living room with mostly restrained colors and one carefully chosen object that draws the eye. The calm surroundings allow the bold element to shine. Nothing is fighting for attention, so everything feels more intentional. Professional designers understand something many homeowners overlook. Not every object should compete for attention. Sometimes restraint is what creates impact. Now here's where things become even more interesting. Everything we've discussed so far is visible, but your strongest emotional reactions often come from senses you barely notice. Take touch. Even when you're not physically touching anything, your brain constantly predicts how surfaces would feel. These materials carry tiny imperfections that our brains instantly recognize as authentic. Plastic imitations, glossy laminates, and artificial finishes may look convincing from across the room, but something always feels slightly off. Your eyes are quietly imagining texture all the time. That's why one beautiful natural material often creates more warmth than an entire room filled with cheaper substitutes. A single wooden table, a woven throw, or a stone surface can change the emotional tone of a room far more than people realize. Your home is not only seen, it is felt. Then comes perhaps the most underestimated design tool of all, lighting. Think about the last restaurant where you truly relaxed. It probably wasn't brightly illuminated like an office. Instead, the light was warm, soft, layered, coming from lamps, candles, wall lights, or small fixtures placed below eye level. That's no accident. Our brains associate bright overhead lighting with daytime activity, alertness, and work. Warm, low lighting signals something entirely different: safety, rest, conversation. For thousands of years, evenings meant gathering around fires. That ancient relationship between low, warm light and relaxation still exists deep inside us today. Even though our homes have changed dramatically, our nervous systems still respond to light in much the same way they did thousands of years ago. Simply replacing one harsh ceiling light with several softer light sources can completely transform how a room feels after sunset. A floor lamp beside a reading chair, a table lamp in the corner, or a small wall light can create layers of illumination that make a space feel more welcoming and far less stressful. Lighting isn't just something that helps you see, it's something that quietly tells your brain how to feel. But if light shapes your mood, smell shapes your memories. Unlike your other senses, scent connects directly to emotional centers inside the brain. That's why a single familiar fragrance can instantly transport you back to childhood holidays or unforgettable moments years later. Luxury hotels understand this incredibly well. Many create signature scents so guests subconsciously associate a particular fragrance with comfort, elegance, and relaxation. Long after guests have forgotten the furniture or artwork, they often remember how the hotel made them feel, and scent is one of the biggest reasons why. But you don't need expensive diffusers. Sometimes the most comforting smells aren't manufactured at all. Fresh flowers placed on a table. These natural scents don't simply smell pleasant, they create emotional anchors. Over time, your brain begins connecting those familiar fragrances with feelings of safety, comfort, and home. Eventually, just one of those scents can instantly help you relax after a long day. And finally, there's one feeling modern homes rarely aim for anymore: awe. It's that quiet moment when a space makes you stop talking. Maybe sunlight perfectly fills the room every morning. Maybe one window frames the changing seasons like a living painting. Maybe an old family photograph catches the afternoon light in exactly the right way. Or perhaps it's simply the silence of a room that allows you to breathe more deeply than you have all day. Awe doesn't require a palace, it requires intention. The world's greatest architecture isn't memorable simply because it's large. It's memorable because every element works together to create emotion. And that's something any home, regardless of its size or budget, can achieve. The biggest mistake people make is asking only one question when designing a room. Does it look good? But your brain asks something completely different. How does this place make me feel? That single difference changes everything. A home isn't just where you store furniture. It's where memories quietly accumulate over years without you even realizing it. Every choice, from the way light enters the room to the texture beneath your fingertips, is constantly shaping your mood and even your behavior without asking permission. That's why truly beautiful homes are rarely defined by expensive furniture or the latest decorating trends. They're defined by how they make people feel. They invite you to slow down. They help you breathe a little deeper. They make you want to stay just a little longer. Ask yourself something much more powerful. Is this helping my home become somewhere I truly want to be? Does it encourage calm? Does it invite conversation? Does it reflect the life I want to live rather than simply the image I want to present? Because once you start designing for your brain instead of just your eyes, you'll discover something remarkable. The best homes aren't necessarily the most expensive. They're not always the most fashionable. They're the ones that make people feel something the moment they walk through the door. The ones that quietly tell your nervous system, you're safe here. And sometimes, that's the greatest luxury of all. If this video changed the way you think about your home, give it a like and subscribe for more ideas that blend design, psychology, and everyday living. And before you go, tell us in the comments, what's one room you've entered that instantly made you feel at peace? And what do you think created that feeling? Your answer might inspire someone else's perfect space.